All right, my crazy government kids. All right, got the half-hour timer? Oh, am I going to burn your brain? I'm going to burn your brain, all right? My regular government guys, this is, you have to remember this for my test, then you're going to forget it, but 4 years from now when it comes up again, you're going to be like, I remember Giles taught me this stuff. I need to go and brush up on it so I know what's going on. AP kids, you have to know this stuff by heart for the exam. So let's go. All right, how do you get to be president? How do you get to be president? Well, you have to win 2 games. You have to win the nomination game, and you have to win the general election game. Now draw a line in your notes on this. This is apples, and this is oranges. They are 2 distinct, separate processes, and the dividing line is the National Party Convention. All right? Now, it's so easy to start talking about aspects of one when you're thinking about one of the others. So, you got to clean up your thinking on this. All right, the general election game, how do you win? Well, you win by winning the Electoral College. We're going to have detailed lessons on this. But, in a nutshell, you win the presidency by winning a majority of the Electoral College votes, which is 1/2 plus 1 of 538, which is, 270. You win your party's nomination. You get your party's official nomination as the candidate for president. The only name of your party on the general election ballot in November, right? That's how you win the nomination game. How do you win the nomination game? You get a majority of delegate votes at the National Party Convention. These happen in August. They just happened, or well, in July usually. They just happened a week ago with the Republicans and 2 weeks ago with the Democrats. All right. At those national conventions, delegates that were chosen by primaries and caucuses all over the country go and vote. All right? They go and vote for who should be their nominee. All right? Who should be that party's candidate, that party's nominee for the general election. All right? For example, this was the fight between Biden and Kamala Harris and Amy Klobuchar and Bernie, right? And Elizabeth Warren on the Democratic side. And then Biden wins. Biden was formally announced the Democratic Party's candidate at the Democratic National Party Convention. This particular election cycle, because Trump is a sitting president trying to be reelected, nobody from the Republican Party challenged him, so he just basically was crowned the nominee at the Republican National Party Convention. All right? So when we're going to talk about examples, we're going to talk about 2016 because that was a competitive process for both the Republicans and the Democrats. In 2016, it was Hillary versus Bernie mainly. In the Republicans, it was Trump versus Kasich versus Rubio versus Cruz, and a bunch of other people. All right? Okay. And then, so, the National Party Convention is held in the summer, and then the Electoral College kicks in, and then that election, the regular Electoral College election, happens in November. All right, so this lesson is going to focus on this part only, all right? After this lesson, we're going to focus on the Electoral College. All right, let's go. All right, my AP kids, you need to know this term, the invisible primary. The invisible primary. In a nutshell, you have to start running for president early, about 2 years early. You got to get party leaders behind you. Hillary Clinton did this by campaigning for people in the 2014 midterm, 2 years before the election, 2 years before 2016, gathering in favors. Later on, elected officials will endorse a candidate. Say, this is the person I support and that I would recommend that you vote for. Money, fundraisers and donors. You got to start collecting money. This is campaign money, which is different than super PAC money, which we're also going to talk about. You got to get the best talent. Get in early so you can get the best talent. And you have to create a positive image with your base, with the people that are paying attention, with the attentive portion of the public, which is not the average people. How do you do that? Write a book. Go on the Colbert Report. Do SNL. This is the early days, right? Before you even formally announce. Oh, the process is long and torturous. In the U.S., it takes about 2 years now. In England, they can't campaign until 2 months before the election. It is a personal hell. Lindsey Graham, who ran for president in 2016 against Trump, calls it a personal hell. They're going to get into every aspect of your life. If you were an 18-year-old that dated a 16-year-old girl when you were 18, guess what? They're going to find out about it, and they're going to tell. So you're going to be investigated top and bottom. Imagine how many people would get chased out of this process because of this. Okay, so this presidential primary and caucus process is a special process that happens once every 4 years. It runs from February to June. There are elections in all 50 states, all right? DC and the territories for both the Dems and the Republicans. They're both going to do this. There's going to be elections. There's going to be a Republican primary and a Democratic primary in Arizona, all right? We call it the presidential primary, but they happen on the same day. There are different ballots, right? There are different ballots. Okay, now, they are called indirect primaries or preference primaries because you're not really voting for the person, you're voting for delegates, and delegates who are going to go and vote for that candidate at the national party conventions. All right. I've already talked about this. There were 15 states that had primaries until 1968. The first state to ever do it was New Hampshire, which is why New Hampshire insists on always being the first primary. Iowa will go before New Hampshire, and because it is a caucus. Why? Tradition, basically. We'll get into that more. All right, look, regular government guys, forget this. AP guys, just make a note of it. You might get one multiple choice question on this. All right, so look, that craziness in 1968 resulted in the Democratic Party changing its rules. And the Democrats said, look, if you, in our 1972 National Party Convention, want to bring delegates, Arizona or California or Alabama, then you have to pick them through a primary or a caucus. All right? And then, since it was such a powerful movement, and any states adopting primaries, that would have to be done by state law, as opposed to caucuses, which are done by state parties. Then the Republicans had to go along because the law applied to all parties. All right? So, no more delegates who would go and vote at the National Party conventions being picked by party elites in smoke-filled rooms. By the way, what happened to the power of party elites? Did it go up or did it go down? Did it go up or did it go down? I'm going to have 2 questions on my test on that. What happened to the power of party elites when all of a sudden all these states had primaries and caucuses instead of just 15? Right? Okay. This process, presidential primaries and caucuses, they went from February through June, roughly, of 2020. Look, turnout in these is low. Turnout in these is low. Look, in 2016, think about it, we had 325 million Americans, probably 250 million of those at least who were voting age. All right? So out of 250 million voting age eligible voters, 9 million Americans voted for either Trump or Clinton. So you have to split the 9 million between Trump and Clinton. Man, that is low, 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 right? People, they go vote in the general election and they're like, oh, I'm doing my civic duty. No. Look, vote in the presidential primaries. Vote in them, all right? Take a stand, pick somebody, all right? Primaries can be open or closed. Remember the difference? All right, if not, you need to go and review that in my other lesson or ask me in class. This is huge. This is huge. Our state primary in August, the one where we decide which Republicans will be on the general election ballot for senator or U.S. House of Representative or governor or other state offices, that election is semi-closed, which means independents, people non-affiliated can vote, right? Not only can they vote, but they get to pick which ballot to vote. In this one, if you are not a registered Democrat, you cannot vote in the Democratic primary or the Republican primary. If you are not registered as a Democrat or Republican, then you cannot vote, all right? If you are an independent, they're going to tell you to go home. This time, by the way, guess what I do? I change my voting registration depending on what's going on. This year, in 2020, what was I? What was I registered as? Here's a hint. Trump was not challenged by a Republican. There was no Republican primary. I mean, it was like a pro forma thing, but there's nobody challenging him. Okay, what did I do? I changed myself to a Democrat so I could vote between Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and Klobuchar and Biden and Kamala Harris and all those people, all right? 2008, what did I do? All right. I voted Democrat again because McCain was being challenged by Romney and people for the Republican nomination. I knew he was going to win Arizona. McCain was going to win Arizona. He didn't need my vote. So I voted between Obama and Clinton. All right. 2012, Obama was not being challenged by another Democrat because he was a sitting president. What did I do? I changed my party registration to Republican so I could vote between Mitt Romney and those other Republicans that were trying to become the person to run against Obama in 2012. You guys follow me? All right. By the way, is this illegal, immoral? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Don't fall into this trap. This is baloney. We need to change this law. By the way, does it cost a lot of money to run an election? Hiring all those poll workers and everything? Remember, 1/3 of Arizonans are independents. 1/3 of them, statewide, are independents. So, with this rule, 1/3 of Arizonans cannot vote in the presidential primaries. Baloney. I think it's baloney. All right. Caucus. What's the difference between a primary and a caucus? This is big. This is big. By the way, about 20, write this down in your notes, AP, about 20 states, mostly smaller, rural type states have caucuses, all right? The rest have primaries. Arizona has a primary. Iowa has a caucus. Nevada has a caucus. What is the difference? In a primary, how do you vote? Well, you can vote by mail, or if you go in and vote, you just go into the ballot booth and you pick your person and you leave. Boom. Takes what? 5 minutes? You can go anytime during the day. A caucus is a closed meeting that starts at a specific time. Tuesday in Iowa, Tuesday at 7:30, all right? There are probably 1,800, I forget how many precincts there are in Iowa, and I think there's about 1,800 of them. So you have to know where your precinct is located for you to go to this meeting. Let's pretend we're in Iowa. Let's pretend Bradshaw Mountain High School is in Iowa, and the Democrats are using Bradshaw Mountain High School as one of their precinct, one of their voting locations, all right? So you would have to know that precinct 853 is going to meet in room F214. And what's precinct 853? Oh, like a couple neighborhoods over out in Prescott Valley somewhere, right? So you'd have to know that you are living in precinct 853. You have to know that precinct 853 is meeting at Bradshaw Mountain F214 at 7:30, and you have to be available. How many people can do all that? What happens? Turnout is what? Turnout in primaries is low, right? Turnout in caucuses is going to be super low. The Iowa caucus, which goes first, happens on February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, the first week of February. What's it like in Iowa in February? There might be a snowstorm. There might be like 4 feet of snow. What about people that work at McDonald's? What about women that have childcare? Turnout is very, very low. And who are the only people that are going to show up? The hardcore base, right? For the Democrats is the crazy liberals, and the Republicans are the hardcore conservatives, right? Who's going to make that? Who's going to make that meeting? Now I'm going to. So, when you go to a caucus meeting, to be successful in a state that has caucuses like Iowa, you need to have a really good ground game. You really have to be really good at grassroots politics, also called retail politics. AP know these terms and what they mean. They mean a really strong organization with lots of volunteers, lots of grassroots. Grassroots means lots of volunteers. Write that down, AP. Lots of volunteers. For one thing, you need a representative, a physical representative in every single precinct. Because if you have a representative, that person can get up and give a quick speech about why they should vote for Bernie Sanders or why they should vote for Joe Biden. Or in 2016, why they should vote for Trump versus Ted Cruz versus Rubio or Kasich, right? Okay. So, who participates in primary and caucuses? The hardcore base. So all that analysis, we're going to talk more in depth about the dynamics of that. But the problem with primaries, remember, turnout is low and only the hardcore base shows up. That problem applies not only in direct state primaries, but also in the presidential primaries and caucuses. All right? All right. I'm going to put this link, stop the video and go to this link and open it up and watch it. Watch this quick video and then come back, all right? Okay, by party rule, 4 states get to go first. Why? Tradition. Somebody's got to go first. Both parties do this, all right? Both parties do it. Who is first? Iowa goes first and is a caucus, all right? Remember, a caucus is a closed meeting where you have to show up on Tuesday at 7:30 and spend 2 hours there, right? The second to go is New Hampshire, and it is a primary. Pull up a map of the United States. I don't want to move the camera. Where is Iowa? What the heck? Where is Iowa? Where is New Hampshire? Who lives there? Who lives in Iowa, New Hampshire? A bunch of old white people, right? A bunch of old white people. In particular in Iowa, a bunch of old white farmers. They have a huge influence, outside influence in who runs for president. There was a lot of criticism for that. So both parties, the Democrats and Republicans, in response to pressure from America saying, wait a minute, these people are basically picking our presidential candidates because they're so important, that both parties said, all right, we're going to move 2 other states up into February. South Carolina, for 2 reasons. Why? It's in the South, right? Remember, these two guys both fought for the North in the Civil War, right? Okay, South Carolina is in the South and has a large population of African Americans. Good. All of these 3 states are in the East. So what did they do? They stuck in Nevada, which is a caucus. All right? They stuck it in because it is in the West and has a large population of Hispanics. All right? Trying to avoid the criticism of a bunch of old white farmer rural types picking our presidential candidates. All right? Okay, why are they so important? Man, most nominees drop out by these 4. This go-around on the Democratic side, Biden had it wrapped up. Biden had it wrapped up by South Carolina. Right after South Carolina, all the other ones dropped out. Like, what the heck? It's so frustrating. In 2008, no, I'm sorry, in 2000, look, I don't mean to offend anybody. I just think John McCain would have made it a better president than George Bush Jr., all right? John McCain dropped out before South Carolina. I'm like, man, what are you dropping out for? I don't get it. You know, here's what happens. Hold on. We'll talk about that more. What happens? What happens if you don't do so well in Iowa and you don't do so well in New Hampshire? Are you done? The money dries up. The attention dries up. All of a sudden you can't buy gasoline to put in your airplane to fly from Iowa to New Hampshire or fly from New Hampshire to South Carolina. So, you know, look, I'm gonna come back to this slide, but look, non-incumbent, that means exclude presidents that are running for re-election, right? Exclude presidents that are running for re-election in Ohio, and Iowa, and New Hampshire. This is before Biden, all right? This is before Biden. Because Biden came, we'll check, but I believe he came in 4th in Iowa and like 7th in New Hampshire. Terrible. And then he does overwhelmingly well in South Carolina. And then all of a sudden everybody drops out. I don't get it. How important is Iowa and New Hampshire? Okay. All 16 of the nominees, that's the 2 names that get on the general election ballot, right? All 16 of the previous non-incumbent nominees came in 1st or 2nd in Iowa or New Hampshire. Iowa or New Hampshire. And 14 of the 16 won one of these 2. Do you have to do well in Iowa and New Hampshire? Well, this time it broke the rule with Biden, but the answer is almost always yes. Almost always yes. All right. So, look, other states are annoyed that they have to wait until March to go by party rule. And by the way, the party will punish you if you are Arizona and try and set your primary date in February. Then both parties will say, you know what? Knock yourself out. But we're not going to let you bring delegates to our national party convention if you break our party rule, right? So, you have to obey. You have to obey. So only these 4 can go in February. Write that down, people. You have to know that by heart. Only these 4 go in February. Which one goes 3rd and which one goes 4th depends on the Republicans and Democrats for these guys. All right? Everybody else wants to front load. They want to go early. They want to go early, so they all pile into March. My evidence for this is going to be, and I'm going to show you the data on this. Write this down, particularly you AP people. An example of this is Super Tuesday, when I think 15 states go on the very first Tuesday that they can. The very first Tuesday they can after March 1st. By the way, this last go-round in 2020, both Texas and California moved their huge primaries from like April and May all the way up into March. Front loading. I'll show you what it looks like, all right? All right. Now, I don't know, is this bad? Look, In 2016, this is when Bernie got beat by Hillary Clinton. He did fine when it was just these first 4, but then when there were like a whole bunch of states, her money and the party apparatus behind her gave her a huge advantage. That's when she started pulling away. She started pulling away on Super Tuesday, and because of this desire of states to go early in the process so that they can be what? So that they can be relevant. All right? Okay, next video we're going to talk about delegates. But let me show you some. I've got 3 minutes. Let me show you some more data. All right, some more data. All right, how non-representative is Iowa and New Hampshire? Well, okay, how about primary black voters? Voters that are voting principally in the Democratic primary, right? Because blacks mostly vote Democrat. Primary black voters. Iowa, 3% of their primary caucus voters are black. 2% in New Hampshire are black. Nevada, 13%. South Carolina, 61%, right? So, these are people that are showing up in the primary election in South Carolina and voting on the Democratic ballot. 61% of them are African American. Of those 61% that are African American, look at this. Isn't this interesting? Look at this. Of that 61%, 37% are women, black women. 24% black men. 21% white women, 14% white men. Now these are people voting in the Democratic primary, presidential primary, right? Not the overall picture of voters that are going to vote in the general election. Do you guys all understand that? Primary election voters look different. They're going to look more like what kind of base? Like the hardcore base. Let me show you another example. All right, 2016 GOP, Republican primaries, right? That was when Trump was running against Kasich and Cruz and Rubio and I don't know. Those are the main ones, right? Okay, who voted in those primaries? Who voted in those primaries? Hold on. Look,
I found this on the web.
Old white guys. Old white guys versus who voted in the general election. A lot more women, a lot more younger people, and a lot more minorities, right? Okay, so next lesson is on delegates. All right, you guys good? Love you. You're awesome.